Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Unfiltered Unfinished. I'm Nicole, and some of you may know me as Nikki Lynn, and I am joined here today with my co-host.
I am Kevin, just a regular guy with a lot of thoughts, no filter, and a heart that's been through some shit. We created this space for one reason.
We are here to talk about what a lot of people may be afraid to say. This podcast is for the overthinkers, the silent strugglers, the ones healing from trauma that we don't talk about, chasing dreams, or just trying to make it through our daily struggles.
Yeah, in this world it tells you to keep everything all together. But here, we fall apart, we laugh, we cry, and we keep it all the way real. Which reminds me, not too long ago, you and I had a conversation about you wanting to put together another podcast.
Yes, I had initially reached out to you. I think it might feel like 2 years ago now. I think it roughly is about.
It's been a little bit, yeah.
Been about 2 years.
What happened?
Yeah, my brain never stops. So it's like I think of all these ideas just day in and day out, and I don't know, for some reason a podcast has stood out to me. If you follow me on social media, I do post a lot of things or intriguing questions sometimes. Or
you do. You're engaged with your followers for sure.
I really am, and sometimes I troll. And I like to ruffle feathers sometimes, and I don't even really, care too much about that topic. I just like to see other people in the comments. Yeah. So
it's fun. It's entertaining to say the least.
So everybody's like, I'm just here for the comments, and but no, I had this vision, and me and a friend, a very good friend of mine, been friends with for about 15 plus years. We had sat down, and, she also had a vision of a podcast herself. And, we touched base. I'm like, this is great. I can do this with my friend. I really love that. It really would have been, I said, the best of both worlds. She comes from a very different, a cultural background and stuff like that. So I feel like we could have reached completely different audiences and things like that. I was so excited. I had the logo made in a day. I was messaging you. I had tumblers made. I'm like, where can I get these t-shirts made?
We were getting the graphics and stuff all together, getting the podcast set up.
And I'm calling you hey, I got the deposit for the studio for you to start recording this, because I knew you were great at that stuff. And, we were beginners, obviously. I needed a lot of guidance.
Absolutely.
So, I just kept pushing forth and forth and forth, and it was, I can't put everything on her. I had a schedule that was kind of going crazy at the time, as well as her, and it was just never aligning. Sure. And I knew that it possibly wasn't going to work, and that's okay, because like I said, I love her. That's my friend, and sometimes things just don't work out when you do things with friends, and that's fine.
Yeah, sometimes friendship and business just doesn't always click.
No,
you can be the best of friends with people, but you may not make the best business partners.
Right, and I'm so foot on gas. Mm-hmm. It's foot on gas. I stop when I stop, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So it's when you're making too many stops along our plans, I'm just
it's easy to get derailed at that point.
It is. Yeah. And then it derails me from what exactly it is, that I wanted to do. But like I said, it was just, no hard feelings at that time. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, universe, this just isn't the time.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it wasn't. So the more I kept thinking and thinking and thinking, I'm like, yeah, I still want to do this. So then
you got that itch that you never had.
I got that itch that needed scratched. And and I knew, I was like, well, if he was going to produce for us,
here we are.
Right. And I thought, what better way to put us both in front of the screen and just try to put our foot on the gas and see what happens.
Yeah, there's no doubt we got a lot to say. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Because
we've both been through hell and back, for sure.
We really have. So yeah, that like I said, it was just, it may not have been the right person at that time, and that's okay. But I'm just really excited to see where this goes now.
Absolutely. And I think that's important, because that's the very reason why we're here, right? We created this space with no judgment, all truth, and just hopefully be able to build a community.
And I really don't want this to be like your typical podcast. I really want to try to cover as much as we possibly can, from mental health and healing, relationships, toxic ones, and, really great ones, grief, guilt, forgiveness, business, burnout, whether it's in our jobs, whether it's in our parenting, whether it's in our marriages. And how do we bounce back from that? And, some guilty pleasures too. I would like for us to discuss. I think a lot of people have some of those as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Lord knows we all, yeah. Lord knows I do. But no, we're going to have some guests. We're going to be diving deep into a lot of stuff. Maybe even a few anonymous confessions. Nothing's really off the table, just kind of a lot of honest conversations with heart. But I suppose now would be a good time to figure out what the hell happened to you and why are you here? Why are we here together talking about this today?
Well, I think we're both here because we definitely did go through some traumatic events and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And
I think it's important that we get some of that out. Give somebody, give them a little taste of what to expect.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think there was just times in my journey personally that I didn't even think that I was going to make it through what I was going through at that time. And sometimes finding strength, I know it's so easy to tell somebody, God gives its hardest battles to its strongest soldiers. And
it's always easier said than done.
It's always easier said than done. And, it's like a lot of these things I didn't ask for. I don't want to be at war. I don't want to have to wear all this armor and protection on my heart that I'm wearing today because of what I had endured, in my relationship, in my marriage, because I am still married. Yeah. So, that was a little bit hard. And I just want this podcast to be a way for me to, reach a lot of women and just give them some advice or some experience on my behalf of, what I went through and the heartbreak. And, I think everybody on social media just thinks I made it look so easy.
Yeah. I'll tell you, from the outside looking in, from my standpoint, if I hadn't talked to you and hadn't really learned what you've gone through, I mean, I would think that you are just bulletproof, that you've got it all together. You've got, your kids and the things that you do with them, your charity work that you do. I mean, you just got so much going on, and you're always so, I think strong is the word that I want us to, because you're always projecting strength when you're on there. And it's first of all, it's inspiring to be honest with you. It's very inspiring, but
Thank you.
Most importantly, coming from someone who's also been hurt, I know that's not the whole story. It's just a mask. And I think now better, no time is better. How does that say? No time. Fuck you. There's no better time than now to really get into that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So I think it's important that we get into a lot of those really, really deep stories.
And we will eventually. There's going to be more episodes to come. And I think a lot of people, not that I'm interesting or that I feel like, people want to know, but there's a lot of things that people don't know because I have been I've silenced out of the respect of my family. Mm-hmm. I've silenced out of the respect of my children. And not everything's made to be public, even though I do share a lot. But, sometimes I think that if I can help somebody else that we may share the same story and they felt exactly how I felt, I feel like, that can give them a little bit of hope.
Yeah,
and
that sense of being alone, it's being able to relate to somebody like that feeling of being alone is really, it's scary, first of all, but two, when you have somebody that you can go through it with, almost immediately that feeling is gone.
1,000%. And, you know, when I went through what I went through, I felt I was the only one. I felt, even though I know that's not, but at that time period, I felt like I was the only one. I had so many emotions to process. But I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I couldn't lay down and cry, and I couldn't lay down and just feel bad for myself. Like I have two children. I have to put this in my backpack and just keep walking with it.
That's the worst part, is when responsibilities and the struggles from normal day-to-day life get in the way of you actually being able to heal and grieve whatever situation that you're going in. Because that stuff is, I mean, it's not going to get it done itself, you know, on its own. If you're not there, if you're not strong enough to pick yourself up and get going, right? To get things done around the house with your children, with whatever events you have in your charity work, whatever. That stuff doesn't get done when you're sitting on the couch crying, right?
Right.
But you have to at some point, right? And it's that balance. It's a real fine balance. It's real hard to be able to grieve and still be able to achieve the things that need to be done.
I'll tell you where a lot of it took place: in car drives by myself at night when my children were sleeping and I was, you know, taking a shower, or if I was laying in my bed, and I hid it very well from them. You know, but there was times where it just, I couldn't, you know, and there was times where they did see me weak, but it was such a great lesson for them, because, you know, I want them to know that it's okay to show their emotion and process all that and just say, hey, you know what? Mommy is going through a very hard time right now. And just having that open, really, that conversation with them. Obviously, please, you guys, at the level of your children. I can't tell my 8-year-old what I could tell my 13-year-old. You know, there's different dynamics and different ways that I have to explain things.
You almost have to have two different filters.
Two different conversations. And, you know, that was really hard too. And, you know, I don't think people talk about grieving the living. And that is, whew, that's a tough one.
That's something that I've not been able to wrap my head around fully. You know, obviously gone through my own stuff. But after you and I had spoke, we had about a month ago, we had a really in-depth conversation, you and I. And first of all, the saying that you said, grieving the willing, hit me in a way that I went, wait, what? Like it didn't click. Like it didn't make obvious sense to me until you got into explain to me exactly what you were talking about. But it hit me so hard that I focused on that a little bit, and in a way it kind of helped me, because now I knew, like, it gave me direction. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
It's just I didn't really know how that, not only I didn't know what it was, for one, but two, I didn't know how to implement that, because that is important. And I feel that I can genuinely relate to that right now, today. And I'm still struggling with that. That's still something that we'll get into that. But I do have a really hard time vocalizing the feelings and the thoughts that come with that. But it has to be done, not only for me, but for whoever out there could obviously relate to.
Yeah. And so I think it's so important for people to know that, you know, I'm not just talking about just me grieving maybe parts of my marriage, or, you know, at that time, I'm talking about when we set boundaries for people, you know, whether it's our friends, whether it's our parents, whether it's a relative, you know, you're still grieving, and
the feeling is
the
the
living.
same.
You're grieving the living. It's, you know, when we, you know, someone we love passes away, you know, that's a lifelong process to be able to get through those humps. But we know physically during that time that they're no longer here, you know, their body's no longer here.
Right.
I'm still grieving every week that my husband comes and picks up our children for his weekends. You know, like
Yeah.
I still have to grieve that in that moment. And I still haven't fully processed that yet, you know?
I have to ask. I mean, because I'm not quite in that position,
Right.
and it may or may not be for me in the future. But how do you, man, with the exchange of your girls, how could you? I mean, how do you deal with seeing him at least? I'm sure at least at the minimum once a week, right? Twice a week, I should say.
Yeah, a couple
probably for the
times.
exchange.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to open it up, right? I mean, at least
It's
to
like
some degree.
it's like tearing a band-aid off
Every
over
week,
and over
yeah.
because sometimes I think I'm just so healed. And then I just take it as like the smallest things like, trigger. And it's a lot because then I take into question, am I doing the right thing for my girls? Is this the right decision? Am I putting them in a statistic category of them not right now being raised in a two-parent household, with their father, which has, estranged relationships a little bit because we went from
Yeah. Happy family.
birth,
Yeah,
happy
all the
family
way.
from the time these girls, moment dad's there the moment they go to sleep, dad's there the moment he wakes up, dad's there at the hospital, to now we're seeing dad,
Yeah.
when they can or on his weekends and things like that too. And then we talk about just mom guilt. I just feel like, I question all the time, like, did I make the right choice? Right. I know I did. I do want to say, like, I do know I made that right choice for me at that time, for a lot of different reasons.
Sure.
I had to show my girls that, as a woman, this is how you deserve to be treated, and this is how you deserve to be respected, and you don't deserve certain things to happen to you that may have happened to me during that time. And great father. I mean, let me just clarify that for everybody. Great father. I always tell people, just because sometimes if they're not great to you at that moment, because there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot, not just on my end, there's a lot on his end as well. So it's like, I cannot hold that against him as being a father,
Yeah.
or anything like that. And it's hard because most women can't
Yeah, you
differentiate
have to,
that.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth.
They
Those are
can't.
two separate parts of a relationship.
It's a lot of bitterness and resentment that women hold on to with, the kids' dad, and women use children as pawns.
Oh yeah.
And it's not talked about that enough, but
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
I've been really lucky in that regard because in the past, my wife and I have had some issues where we might be separated for a little short window of time, a couple weeks, a month, whatever it might be. Luckily for me, as much as she hated me at that time, she never not once held my daughter against me or kept her away from me. She didn't do any of that, and I couldn't. At the time, I could not have been more happy about that, obviously. But it still hurt me in a way because I know that there are so many other people where these women are just like, it's like a toy, or not a toy, but a weapon, where they're just using it to hurt their spouse that they're, separated from. But what a lot of people don't realize is how much damage that does to the kids.
1,000%.
Like, I mean, that's mind boggling that thought just goes out the window. Like you love your children. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's wild to me.
And growing up, I grew up in I'm an only child. I grew up in a two-parent household.
Me too.
So a lot of my friends didn't. And as crazy as my childhood was at times and struggles and everything, my parents were still a safe place for a lot of my friends. And they picked up the role of being parents to my friends that just didn't have
didn't
nowhere.
have it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
didn't
That's
have
so
that.
nice.
And it's like, even though they were going through their own struggles and stuff like that during that time, they were just always so great and nurturing and loving in that aspect. So
And that's good to have, especially in
It
that age,
was.
you know, in the younger years too, because you never know what some of these kids are going through.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And, you know, to this day, I still have some very close friends that, you know, they call my parents mom and dad. And just,
Yeah.
you know, even though we may not be as close, but they still, you know,
Yeah.
same thing. I had growing up, you know, I had two great people in my life that got me through a lot of my teenage years as well. And sometimes, you know, if it wasn't for them during that duration of time, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I don't know where I would be. And then now, being a parent myself, it's so crazy because it's like I had to go back and write this just message and let them know that I understand that you never had to do any of that for me or how hard it was.
Yeah.
And you never even let me know how hard it was.
Yeah.
You didn't show me. You still paid for everything. You treated me like your child. And I was an extra body in your home.
Yeah.
And just
I mean, you're essentially another one
another
of their kids.
child. Yeah. And you know, it was no questions asked. It was just done. And you know, I think my heart will forever be in debt for
Yeah.
that, for
Yeah.
sure.
I still got friends of mine as well. You know, like my one good buddy, I've been friends with him now. I'm 40 since I was 15, 14 maybe. Yeah, same thing. Every time I don't call her, you know, by her name. I almost said it. I don't know if that matters, but I don't call her by her name, you know, she's mom to me. You know what I mean? Because she is from the better half of my life here. You know, she's always been that lady that always invited me into their house, that always fed me dinner, that always, you know, there was no, you know, always just was there, just another foundation of my childhood that I can kind of rely on, which is, I mean, you can't really speak enough about that. And
No.
and that had such a profound impact on me growing up, because she's not the only one. There was also another one too that was also incredibly close. But that had such a big impact on me that, like, raising my own child, like, I try so hard to communicate to her, to let her know that there is no amount of shit or, you know, trouble that she can get into that's ever going to steer me away from being that parent for her and anybody that she loves. If she's got close friends that need help, I'm there, no matter what.
1,000%.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that is such a big thing, because I don't think there's enough of that either.
There's not.
No.
And in today's society, we live in a society where people they turn their head, they turn a blind eye. It's not my
lot of that.
business. It's not my business, but it is. Our
Nose up, walk
children,
away.
our children. I don't care whose children. They are our business. You know, we need to do a better job as a whole, as just everything is protecting our babies. I mean, when we talk about other things, you know, a lot of kids are just dealt some cards in life that they don't have choices.
They feel like they don't have choices.
Environmental factors, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the environmental factors are already kind of setting them up already for so many obstacles, which, you know, these kids, they didn't choose that, you know. And I think back to, like, when when we were in school and stuff like that, and I think back of just like a few individuals that I went to school back then that, you know, came to school with holes in their shoes, or may have seemed like they haven't bathed in 4 or 5 days, or get clothes just dirty, and then everybody making fun of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I was probably one of those kids at one point in time, but no one taught me any better.
Yeah.
No one told me that wasn't the right thing to do. And now that I look back and, you know, just the field of work I'm in and just things that I do, and it's like, it was never their fault. You know, who knows what their life was like at home. And here we are making it harder, you know, for them. They already have it hard at home, and now they're coming to school.
And they feel like they can never get away from the judgment or from whatever that's holding them down. You know, they can't even go to school and get away from it. You know what I mean? Like, if it's consumed all 24/7, I mean, that creates a lot of emotional traumas. That creates a lot of, let's be honest, it can really cause not only pain and suffering, but also worse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
And especially today, bouncing off of that and just saying, I always say, it's not like suicide didn't exist during our younger years or time, but I don't even think I could really tell you I even knew what that was to like later. Compared to now and the children today in our society. Suicide, just suicidal thoughts and actions and things like that have become such a bigger problem in our society, especially for our youth. And
It feels like it's so rampant these days. It just seems like it's all over the place. So many young people that are just so incredibly depressed. And so,
that's because this is the thing I like to tell people too, when we grew up, it was always, well, you don't have no problems, and we're not going to get you help because that's going to make our family look crazy, right? You'll be just fine. Go do this, and and I, just to be very transparent, at the age of 12 and 13, I had experienced some suicidal thoughts, and
you yourself,
me myself, yeah, I was a cutter at one point in time. And a lot of people don't know that. I don't talk about that just because of what I was going through. And it was never I think it was more of an attention thing.
Sure.
So let me clarify that. I think people need to understand that. I think during that period of time in my life, my parents were going through some things. I saw a lot of things and just going through that. And I was crying out for attention. And, I cut myself and I would hide it. And it was never to be like, oh, I'm going to cut myself because I don't want to be here no more. I was cutting myself because and it sounds crazy, but this is really a thing. It was just a reliever at that time.
It distracted you
It distracted me.
Yeah, I can see that.
And, I remember one time my mom finding a knife from the kitchen underneath one of my dressers. And
that couldn't have been.
It wasn't good. It wasn't a good thing. And, like I said, they were aware of some of those things at the time, but it was, oh my God, I'm going to call tomorrow and find somewhere where we can get you help. It was just like, I'm going to put this back and we're never going to do it again.
Shrug it off. Lift the carpet, sweep it under, put it back down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah,
and I don't fault them for that because at that same time,
that was the norm.
Yeah. And not only that, once we get into education and we think deeper generationally, nobody taught them.
Right.
The coping ways to teach me.
Yeah, you think about the generation that parented our parents. Holy Moses!
That's what I and I think back. I was like, I can't really say like, oh my God, you guys never really did nothing for me. I can't say that because they were young parents.
Right.
They were still learning. I was like. They had me when they were 20. So I'm 15 and they're 35. I'm almost grown about time. They're less than my age right now. So,
my parents were 16, 17 years old when they had me.
So they're still in their party era.
Oh boy, I tell you. I've been through a lot of shit with that. And yeah. And at the time, it seems like it's the end of the world, the way your parents are treating you and how this and that and the other thing. But as an adult, you look at it and go, "Oh,
I understand.
It makes sense now."
It makes sense.
And they always told me, "You're gonna remember this." I'm like, "Okay,
it makes
sure
sense.
As hell." Yeah.
But and that's what I tell people all the time, and what we can do, and that is why I am so honest with my children right now.
Oh, you have,
which I'm sure you are too with your daughter.
Me and her have this. Just impossibly, like my wife is incredibly like I'm gonna say it. I think she's absolutely jealous of the relationship that I have with my daughter because her and I, like, we are the same in so many ways, and like the conversations, it might turn into some things that from the outside looking in might either seem strange for some or might feel like you know, you don't need to be saying that to her at her age or whatever. But like the difference is I took what we're talking about with my parents and the way I was raised and how secluded I felt at times. I took that, and I've learned one thing growing up in the household that I did. One of the biggest things is that I learned from is either you can take the experience and you can mirror it, or you can take the experience, learn from it, and flip it over and do the complete opposite. And that's what I did. I love my parents to this day. Both of my parents are still together. They've been through hell, but I didn't have the best childhood in the world. But I understand.
Right.
And because of that, I was able to apply a lot of that stuff to my own relationship with my own daughter to make sure that I can try my best to set her up for give her some of the love and affection that I didn't necessarily get, and the support that I didn't necessarily get. You know, a lot of that stuff.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And the same way, my parents are still together to this day too. I think 46 years, 47 years. I'm sorry. I don't know. One of those. 46 or 7.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, sorry, Mom and Dad. 46, 47 years. And you know, they been through a lot. They were together when they were 15 years old.
Well, shit, 40 something years.
Yeah, they're 60. So they're 62. We could do the math. They were together when they were 15. So whatever that is, that's how long they've been together. But no. And you know, I watched a lot, and they were still learning each other, and mistakes were made, and bad decisions were made, and addiction played a role in my childhood. Alcoholism played a role in my childhood, which caused me to do those things I was doing for attention.
Is that when the cutting started?
Yeah, that's when the cutting started. You know, there was a lot of things, and it took me a long time to understand and to forgive and to let go. And I'm talking about till I had my own children.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time I had compartmentalized so much of my childhood and things that I seen that I shouldn't have seen, or decisions that were made that shouldn't have been made. And it surfaced when I became a mom.
It probably all came out at once.
It came out.
Yeah.
This like literally hit me out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm like, why is this? What is going on? Like, why am I these memories and these things and you know, certain things like coming back to me? And I'm like, oh my God, because it was like I acted like it never happened.
Right.
Instead of addressing it head on, or maybe having that conversation with, you know, with my parents, and which I eventually, you know, I did. I ended up self-publishing a book, and it was my biggest form of therapy. And I was so scared to put out this book.
I'm so envious of people that can do that.
I was so scared. It was, I think, about 5-6 years ago. But it's called Heartbreak, Humbleness, and Healing. It's on Amazon, just plugging it in. But no, go get it. No, but I really think, you know, when I wrote this book, it was so hard because I was telling other people's stories that I didn't know if they ever wanted to be told. But then I had to say, no, because this affected me.
Yeah, that's
you don't get to dictate
right.
what I'm telling.
That you're in this. It's my story now.
It's my story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I literally had this book wrote, and I was just like so scared. And I remember I gave my dad a copy, and I was terrified. My dad is a great dad. He's been through a lot, and from trauma to things in his childhood to, you know, struggle with addiction at a point in life. And
I see how close you guys are.
oh, we are. We are. And, you know, there was domestic violence in my home growing up. And
I can relate.
The things that I was seeing that I knew that just wasn't right. And my dad had got my dad had got sick and during this time, and he was hospitalized and in a coma for like 2 weeks. And I remember I gave him the book probably a week before he ended up going in. And I remember sitting up in the hospital, and he finally like woke up after like 2 weeks. And it was so crazy because we have never been a family to openly discuss our emotions and talk about our feelings. And there wasn't a whole lot of hugs and kisses and I love yous, and not saying that they did. I mean, not saying that they didn't, but that's just how our household was. And I remember him out of nowhere, and he's like, "So I read your book."
And this is after
This was after like he woke up one of our conversations, and I'm like, "You did?" And he's like, "It was very hard to get past the first couple pages." And he goes, "I never knew that I put you through what you were expressing."
Yeah.
Because I mean, in that moment, they're not.
Yeah.
You know, it's just to spur the moment. And he's like, he's like, "I kind of look like a villain, but I said, Dad, you're not." And the book was wrote in 3 parts. It was called Heartbreaks, Humbleness, and Healing for a reason. Because in the first, Heartbreaks was everything that we went through as a family. The humbleness was just things that I learned on that journey.
That was the light bulb.
The light bulb. Yeah, that was just saying like, you know what? I went through all these things, but I still had a roof over my head. They still made sure I had clothes on my back.
Yeah.
I had a pair of Jordans every month that they came out. It was different types of love.
Right.
Or attention that was given to me at that time. And the healing. The healing was the most important part. The healing took me a long time, and I had to realize that did I ever sit down and ask them, what made you this way? Mm-hmm. How did you get here? Simple, right? You would think.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't.
Oh,
it really wasn't. And I had to realize that, my dad had a very hard childhood, and he only seen what was repeated in his household.
Right.
The domestic violence, the addiction.
And here we go again.
And here we are.
Yeah.
We're repeating that. So, like I said, I was like, you're not a villain in my story. Honestly, my dad is, emotional, but he is a hero in my heart. My dad is a hero in my heart, and my dad knows me and him bump heads a lot because he's older and he's stuck in his old-fashioned ways, and it drives me nuts sometimes.
Well, that head bumping wouldn't happen if you guys didn't have the relationship that you do.
It wouldn't. Yeah. And
and I learned that with my own daughter right now.
I'm so lucky because that man is the best grandfather I have ever seen in the world. And my kids, I always say, I know we can't go back, obviously, and fix our traumas and our childhood, but for the growth to be shown within my children, that is probably the best type of healing and payback that I can ever get, because they don't know that version. And that's okay. I don't want them to know that version. I want them, my parents are like Princess Diana, and, just that they're like the king and queen. My parents are, and they are, I watch it, and it's just so bittersweet. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes the little girl in me, I don't think people talk about this enough, but sometimes the little girl in me resurfaces. And sometimes I say, how come I didn't?
Yeah, where was that?
Where was that
ago,
at?
Right.
Where was that at? Yeah. But I can't do that. But it's natural. But it's natural.
What's crazy is that as you're telling me this story, is that like I can't express how very similar our relationships were. My relationships were as to yours with your family, because it's the same thing. I love my parents to death. Today, I'm 40 years old. I love my parents I wouldn't trade it for the world. But back then, as a kid, you know, they were young, 16, 17 years old when they had me, and it's like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They were kids. They were kids. I can't imagine having a child that young. And they were learning and making the insane mistakes, and I've seen some shit. I've been through a lot of my own shit. And to kind of relate with you, I can honestly probably count on my two hands how many times I told both of my parents I love them. I'm 40. Think about that. Like that, we don't do that.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's so crazy? How many times do you tell your daughter you love her?
That many times a day.
Same.
More than this.
Same.
Yes.
And we take that because we remember what that feels like.
Yeah.
I will randomly walk by my kids in the house and just be like, come here.
Yeah.
Because I love you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell my daughters, like, you're beautiful and you're worthy.
All the time.
And you don't ever for a second make anyone make you feel
anything
other than
less
that.
than. Yeah.
Because I literally, I'm so big on that because that's so important. And also, I really want people to really start normalizing apologizing to your children.
Oh yeah.
Sure. No one ever apologized to me about the way that I was made feel at certain point in times. And, you know, sometimes I would go to bed at night and think, you know, are my parents fighting because of me? Did I do something wrong? Was it something I did? Is this, and no one told me it wasn't me. And I, you know, that's not in a bad way, but it's just, I'm so big now. I mean, you see my schedule sometimes is just crazy, or I'm going through this emotion, I'm going through that emotion. And, you know, sometimes there's times when I wasn't the best mother during the day.
Sure.
I may have snapped, you know, at my kids for asking me for something at like the wrong moment, you know, and it's like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. No, you know, or I'm yelling because I'm overwhelmed, or if I'm arguing with their dad, or if I just anything in general. And then it's like during the day, at night, I'm like, I go into their rooms and I sit and I say, I am so sorry because mommy had such a rough day. But it was nothing that you did. It was nothing that you did. And I love you and I'm sorry. And, you know, just to reassure them, it is never nothing that they're doing. It's just sometimes I'm still learning to process my own emotions.
Still trying to figure out.
I am not put together as much as you guys think I am. But no, I'm not. And, but I do know, and I do want to go back and talk to you since we are on the subject. And you guys, it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we really wanted to address that in this episode. My Facebook timeline has been full of a lot of men, young men as well. A lot of status that I was talking to you last week, and when we brought this up, and I was like, oh my God, I told you, I was like, I'm so heartbroken at these statuses that I'm seeing. These men saying that they don't even want to be here no more. They're not being supportive. There's just no other way out. And, you know.
And think about all the ones that aren't talking.
The one that's important.
Scary, yeah.
That's important of us being here too. And it just broke my heart. And I just, and I don't comment on a lot of stuff sometimes, but when I see stuff like that, I am just like, hey, chin up. It's a bad day today. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow's going to be better. Please don't make a permanent decision off a temporary, you know, in the moment feeling. Yeah. I know somebody loves you. Your families love you. You know, when we talk about suicide, and this really bothers me, you guys. I see these comments where they say suicide is the most selfish act that a person can do. A coward commits suicide.
Yeah, that's what they say.
A coward does not commit suicide, and I want you guys to know that. You know how much guts it takes for someone to know that they're about to do what they're going to do.
I got the chills. I got goosebumps. I can relate so heavily.
And I know, and I want to get into your story of that too. And it angers me. selfish, when we talk about selfish, when we talk about suicide, for the family, it's the family that's mourning, that's going to have to mourn that and have to process that and go through that and live with that. But we just don't understand or know what someone is just going through. And like you said, the silence that a lot of men are holding in and not talking about is just those numbers are increasing.
It is. It's getting out of control, actually. I see a lot of it. I'm happy that I'm able to see some men actually finally feeling that it's okay for them to open up. But on the other side of that, as a man myself, and as obviously having a lot of men as my friends, and just knowing that I'm one of the few that is okay with talking about it now, mind you, now it took me till now to do that. But, and I see my friends, how just zipped up tight they are, act like nothing's, they're men, big, bad, burly men that don't have to worry about, nothing hurts them. But you see what they go through. They walk through the day like everything's fine. But the second you close that door, the second they turn their back and walk away, it's you know what I mean? I know that. And I think right here, right now, it is absolutely the most important thing, especially now, again, it being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, that conveying the message that it is okay for a man, anybody, but for a man, to be able to talk without judgment, without being, ridiculed or, picked on for whatever it might be, because there is so many men, and I don't have the statistics, God Lord, that's a shitty word, in front of me, but it's disgusting. I saw some videos and TikToks and other things that demonstrated the amount of men. I can't. I can't even.
And before we end, we'll pull up some statistics just to for educational purpose for everybody that is watching. And it should be honored and it should be talked about. And this isn't just saying like, everybody's mental health is important. Okay.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
But the lack of resources for men compared is just,
Yeah. It's that the scales are tipped.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah. In a big way, for sure. So I know that I had told you before about something that I had going on. Did you want to touch on anything before?
No, I want you to share your experience and your story.
What I think is important, as we've been discussing, is men's mental health and allowing men, to know that it's okay, because we really don't know what some people are going through. I'm gonna tell a story, and I'm gonna go back to my early teens. Okay, we had moved out of the town that I was in to another city, so I had to switch schools. I had to make new friends. I mean, everything changed. And one person, so okay, let me dial back here for a sec. We switched schools, went to a completely new school. I didn't know anybody. It was a wild experience just getting from one school to another at the time. And I'm not gonna lie, I can't pinpoint the time that the age that I was when we switched, but when we did make that switch, I moved into a neighborhood. There was only 3 streets and one street that connected all 3, and that was it. And then the rest of the town was on the other side of the freeway, so it was a really small thing. But because of that little community was real close, but I didn't know it yet. So I go to school, and I had the first person that literally greeted me in my first homeroom class. I think it was 5th grade. Yeah, it was 5th grade. This kid comes running up to the door, wraps his arm around me. Like, I was the most welcome. Like, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. I was first day of school. I walk in. He's got his arm around me. Hey, man, what's going on? Like, he just took me in. He embraced me. And it was honestly like one of the best, even till this day, one of the best experiences, because I know walking into that school that day, I mean, it felt like my life was falling apart. You know what I mean? I'm however old you are in fifth grade. I didn't know how to handle it.
Moving is a
It's so big.
it's a drastic change, especially for children.
Yeah, for someone at that age,
Right?
it's all they've known their entire life, and now you're literally putting their life in a jar and just shaking the hell out of it, and
Here you
spill it
go.
on. Yep. So this kid brings me in, hugs me, tells me how, hey man, I'm gonna take care of you. It was the coolest thing. So over the years, we kind of gotten really close, and I can tell you that as him and I continued to get closer, and I forgot to mention, he lived across the street, 5 houses down. So it was even more perfect that he was in my part of town,
right?
Versus, because my little nugget of town was probably about maybe 10% of the entire city. The rest of the city, like I said, was on the other side of the highway, and at that age, you're not doing that trek. Anyways, so we spent a lot of time together. We were getting real close, and he had it together, man. At that age, or started getting into teenage years and stuff. He was the man. Like, he always had the girlfriends. He always had the cool stuff. His family would buy him. He always, he really, anywhere you went, everybody knew him. Mm-hmm. So you would be in a place unfamiliar to you. Well, don't worry. He's got you, right? Like, he's just one of those things. Like, you're going to meet people. If you're with him, you're going to meet people. So, we get through the early teens and get into 14, 15 years old. And this is the part of my life that I think is kind of like the start of all of my issues today. This is wild to me. So me, him, and his mom are going to a campground to visit his aunt, which is out of state. So we met halfway. And we go through, we had a great day. I sprained my ankle that day. That was like the worst of it, of course. But we ended up having a great day. We played the sports, and we did some water stuff, and we did the arcade, and it was just honestly one of the best days that I can recall.
Definitely memorable for you.
Absolutely. Both good and bad, unfortunately. And we just built this memory that I will cherish forever, because it was the last memory I had of him. There's parts of the story that I don't know that I feel like I should get into yet, but
okay.
It is prior to, it's kind of in between what I started with.
Okay.
He ended up getting a gun. We can kind of leave it there for now, but he was the man, because he just had everything. He was always confident and whatever else, and then the gun was just like a weird, awkward piece that I just never really understood. And now back to the campground. Okay, I forgot to mention the gun part, but we get back to the campground, and we're doing their thing, and it's time to go. It's late. We've been there literally all day, and him and his mom get into an argument because she has been drinking with her sister all day long, and she said some really hurtful shit to him. She was very drunk, and she obviously struck a nerve, and he kind of separated himself. He said, "I'm not getting in the car with you. I don't care what you say. I'm sorry. I'm not getting in the car. You're drunk. We got too far of a drive. This is not happening." So he ran. He got out of there. And I'm standing there going, what the hell am I supposed to do? I have him saying, "I'm not going." And I have her saying, "Go get him. We need to go." So I'm trying to get him. Anyways, I find him in the arcade, bring him back. And at that point, he finally just said, "Screw it." So we get in the car. He's in the front. I'm sitting directly behind him. Mom's driving, obviously. She's got the music up. She don't want to hear shit. And he's trying to talk to her. Like you can see that he's really trying to like, Mom, you know, like he's really, as a kid, I look at it now as a fully functioning adult. As a kid, he was trying to be so much more so much more mature than you would think he could have been in that moment.
What it was is he was playing the role of the parent
That she didn't.
that
Yeah.
she didn't
Yeah.
in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so crazy to me. And so finally, music got turned down, and she just started laying into him, just started yelling at him again, saying some, I mean, stuff you just don't say to your kids. And he made a statement to me that I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to forget. And I'm getting the chills thinking about it. But he said, we'll see how much you really care when you wake up tomorrow and find your son dead. And I kind of like, I had to check myself. I like, did I hear like all these thoughts in my head? I'm like, did I hear that? Did he say what I think he said? Because I knew he had the gun. She didn't.
Oh.
So being raised in the household that I was raised in, we didn't have the love. We didn't do that stuff, you know. But in that moment, I felt that it was necessary. I grabbed him. I grabbed his shoulders. I'm like, man, I love you. Please don't do anything.
That's scary.
Don't.
That's scary to hear, like your friend even, you know, saying that.
So I tried to ask if I can sleep over his house. His dad at the time, unfortunately, had an issue with me. They weren't going to allow that. So I called my parents on the way home, and it was late, like I said, and they were already in bed. So they didn't get the call. And, you know, I got the the answering machine back then. So we just kind of just said, you know, that's it. You know, I love you, man. Like, please don't.
And in your head, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
So I get out of the car, and they proceed down the street, and that's it. So I go get in bed, go to sleep, and that's it. Fast forward to the next morning. Mind you, I'm kind of an early riser to begin with. But for some weird, awkward reason, I slept kind of late that day. And at the time, like when I'm waking up, I'm like, oh my God. Like I realized what time it was. Like, this is not right. So my first instinct was to go to the front door. Because like I said, he's 5 houses down across the street. And I shit you not, the first thing I see is ambulance down the street. And immediately I'm like, this cannot be real life. Like, I didn't understand. I mean, I knew.
I got chills right now.
I knew, like, in that moment that something happened. Now, to be completely honest, at this point, I am unsure to what some of the events were after that, because a lot of it was so blurry. But from being interviewed by the police, by our school counselors, by the principals, by our parents, we all obviously didn't. I mean, I didn't tell them that he had a gun. I mean, I'm his friend. I think I'm sticking up for him at that point.
Right.
I didn't tell him where they got it from. I didn't tell them anything. I don't know what.
Yeah.
And at that time, when he made that comment, looking now as an adult, that was the single focus that changed everything for me. Because now, fast forward to last year, actually, about a year and a half ago now, there was something that happened in that part of my life that brought all of that back. And we'll get into that too. But the thing that really sucks about this entire thing is that because when I was a kid and I didn't explain to anybody what happened the night before, the news articles, all the stories, all of the stuff that was out. Oh, he was playing Russian roulette. Oh, he was trying to teach his friend, because he did have another friend there. He was trying to teach his friend how to play and how to beat Russian roulette. And no part of me as a kid, no part of me thought, this is bullshit. Like, I know this is bullshit, but I didn't, like, no, there was nothing in my head at the time that said, I need to fix this. So I spent all of my life trying to rationalize why this happened, why I couldn't say something, why I couldn't intervene when he got the gun in the first place. I wasn't there when he got it, but I saw it the day he got it. I knew who he got it from. I could have said something to them.
Right.
They didn't know. So I kind of shoved that deep in the pit, and that was the end of that. A year and a half ago, the person that was with him when it happened, he died. And it took so much out of me, because I spent my entire life thinking about what really happened in that house. There was nothing that I couldn't muster up the courage to ask that person what the fuck actually happened that day. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want to stir something up.
Right.
Because he struggled his entire life with drugs and in and out of the hospitals and rehabs and things like that, because of what he had to go through at that age. I think he was a year older than us at the time, maybe 2.
Now, this was the individual that was with your friend.
Yes. That was the person that was with him.
Which I'm sure that event also traumatized
instantly
him.
Yes. Because he saw something that nobody, no matter what age, no matter what gender, no matter anything, should ever have to see. Game, maybe, or not. Suicide. Nobody should have to see that.
Right.
And as a teenager, he did. And he struggled his entire life. He ended up ruining it. He died at early 40s.
Oh, wow.
And that right there, that moment, him dying, was another just monster part, because not only did him as a person, as a human being, as a man, as a father, die because of something that he didn't fix, that he didn't stop, that he couldn't, he felt like he needed to do something and he didn't. That killed him. Not only did that person die, but so did the story and the truth, because I didn't get that. I was the one who was with him not even 12 hours before he died. I was the one who had to cross my fingers and just hope that he's going to be there tomorrow.
Do you think you lived with a lot of guilt during that time? Were you going back in your mind and saying, what if I would have told somebody? What if I would have just been honest at that moment, even though you thought you were protecting him? Yeah. And that's usually the thought process. We don't want to betray.
Right. You'd immediately lose that friend.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard. That's a hard decision that you have to do. Yeah.
It's a real fine line to.
So do you think that you had to sit with yourself sometimes and just and just think, like, if I would have just said in the car to his mom that he had a gun, or if I would have said this and maybe he might still be here?
There's a lot of times that I've spent, especially earlier on, as a younger person, that I could not grasp. Because, obviously I know my friend is dead.
Right.
Obviously I know that I could have stepped in. But a lot of it, at first, all I wanted to do was just shove it down. Because, as with everything, as we've already talked about today, is that is what we're taught.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just want to suppress everything that you were just feeling in that moment and during that time.
And I'm 15 years old. I'm like, at the time, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, you're fine.
At 15 years old, it's like you think that you're on top of the fucking world at that time. And
oh yeah, we think we know everything at that age.
Right. And I didn't, all I wanted to do was just wake up the next day and not have to deal with it and not have to feel anything and not have to, you know, it was just, I just kept pushing it down. And then the more I kept doing that, the more I kept thinking like, because to come full circle, it took me a long time to be able to come to that realization that I could have actually made a difference. I should have said something. And because of that, I would say maybe 10 years-ish it took for me to really, because I was 15 when it happened. You know?
Yeah.
It took me a little while to realize, like, yeah, man, this is where it's starting to hurt. Because one simple sentence, he's got a gun. I think that would have changed the entire thing. I would have got my ass kicked.
To this day, have you ever had a conversation with his mother?
Yes, but no.
Okay.
Yes, because can't say that.
Okay.
Yes, because I have physically talked to her.
Okay.
No, because I've never, ever repeated what I said to you today.
Okay.
To her. Actually.
Well, do you think that she can come across this podcast?
It's scary a little bit.
Okay. And that's just, you know, when we're talking and we're being wrong, we're honest and
Yeah.
we're saying this, you know, but it could be a positive,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing positive out of that situation, but the positive as to you expressing your feelings of, you know, just saying, and you can't beat yourself up, because if we beat ourselves up about the would've, could've, should've's, we're going to be beating ourselves up for the rest of our life. And once again, that's one of those things, easier said than done.
Yeah.
You know, because I still go through would've, could've, should've's. But then, you know, it's just like, or was that going to happen regardless?
Right.
You know?
And that's something obviously that you can't answer, but
Right.
It is something that it steadily replays all the time because you don't know. And, you know, to address the concern about his family, they never went back in that house. After it happened, they came home, and they moved that day. They had cleaners come in because it was kind of gross. And they packed up and they left. So it took me a couple of years to see them. After that, we ended up staying in contact because that's when social media was starting to kind of like, you know, Facebook and MySpace, that kind of stuff was taking off. And,
oh, how I miss MySpace.
I know. So we have stayed in touch. We have had, you know, she's always looked at me, and because there was 4 of us kind of in a circle at that time. She's always looked at us as her kids, you know. But I think it scares me for her to hear this today.
Well, yeah, because we have to think and take in consideration her healing process.
How much suppressing she had to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to think from her end as much as it hurts you. I mean, obviously, as a mother who lost her son, you know, can this conversation surface a lot of things for her that maybe she, you know, sometimes we work hard in our process of therapy and everything, and or you know, triggers, when we talk about triggers. So, you know, right, is there a right time to have that conversation? You know, how do you open that up?
Right.
And how do we open up this Pandora box that we don't want to go back into, to bring back for both of you, you know, for everybody involved.
And I'll tell you, I also do, and this is more of my own personal, I do it for my personal stuff, but I also write songs and do some sort of a little bit of music here and there. And like I said, I never really spoke about this. My parents know, obviously. And my immediate, like the closest people that I know, but it never made it outside of that circle. And because a lot of things, my life really started to fall apart last year when he died. He, as in the person who was with me.
Right.
When he died, knowing that the truth was gone, I kind of spiraled after that. A lot has changed for me that year. 2024 was supposed to be a really good year for me. And, you know, I used to be a really heavy person. I lost a lot of weight.
Yes, by the way,
Yes.
congratulations on that. And that's definitely something we'll talk about in our, in our
absolutely.
upcoming episodes, the journey of that.
That was a big process.
Of that you went on. So, you know, and which is also a huge part of mental health during that
Absolutely.
process.
Oh my gosh. And so much goes into that.
Yeah.
I can't, but we can dedicate an entire episode.
Yes,
to that.
no, for sure. Because I
wild.
definitely know there's some people that probably inquire and, you know, have probably went through the same thing and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So definitely something that we will talk about coming up.
Yep.
So do you want to give should we give a couple statistics?
I think that's absolutely
for our audience that is watching and how important that is. I will kind of be reading off of the notes, you guys, just so I can get the statistics right that we have. And I just want everybody to know how important it is and, you know, how important it is for if you know, in marriages and relationships and just things like that, when we are being supportive of, you know, not even just our significant others, just friends or anybody, our family,
your
just
fellow person.
Your fellow person that just, you know, that just needs it. And I just want to go over a couple of statistics. It says men make up nearly 80% of all U.S. suicides and die by suicide at about 4 times the rate of women. 4 times.
That's disgusting.
And in 2022 to 2023, suicide rates hovered around 14 per 100,000 across the United States, the highest since World War II. Men are far more likely to engage in substance misuse. Approximately 21% of men with mental illness also have a substance use disorder. And I can definitely speak on this, just being a substance abuse and counselor myself. That is the majority of a dual diagnosis, one and the other. So when we talk about mental health, or if we talk about diagnosis such as bipolar, ADHDs, personality disorders, schizophrenia, a lot of men do resort to different substances or alcohol. So those are never two good things to put together, as you know, everyone should know. Globally, men are more than twice as likely to develop alcohol use disorders and up to twice as likely to have substance abuse problems compared to women. And I just want to kind of give you a little couple educational contributing factors. Toxic masculinity, the cultural pressure to be self-reliant and avoid emotional expression correlates with risk-taking, depression, stress, substance misuse, and a reluctance to seek help. And what that means is the stigma of society when we talk about men. You know, you would not believe how many times I see young boys cry, even today. And it's, I'll stop crying or we'll give you something to cry about. Please stop telling your children that. Please stop telling your young boys, your young men, your teenagers that. We have to normalize. It is okay to show emotion. It is okay to regulate your feelings. It is so important to figure out the process of coping. Men are less likely to receive mental health treatment than women. I preach so much. Therapy. We all need therapy. I'm a therapist and I need therapy and I go to therapy. I feel like therapy is what it is. It's therapeutic. The number one response I find that I was getting from clients and men and just people in general is I don't want to sit there and talk to somebody. How are they going to tell me about my problems? Because there's different ways of maneuvering and different tools that you can really utilize. And not only that, but sometimes just talking to somebody who knows nothing about you to not have that judgment.
Yeah, I got to make a connection here if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after, this is so important, and this is going to, kind of attach to what you just said. After he died, again, the kid who was with my friend, I spiraled out of control. It took me from February, he died in January, and it really starting towards the end of January into February, and all the way down through September. And in between, in that window, I told you I'm losing weight. Things are happening for me, real positive in that regard. But the emotional and mental downfall that I took, I gotta say it not only had a toll on me, but my wife and my daughter and all of the stuff that came with that. Like, I'm in my relationship now, today, as we speak in 2025, is right on the edge of being over completely. And it's all because I didn't, not once, tell her or anybody that I needed help. It took me until September or October area for me to go, shit, now's the time. Because she has told me time and time again, Kevin, you need help. You need help. And I'm like,
and we do that as a lot as women.
Yeah.
I did that with my husband plenty of times too. And he kind of had the same mentality and thought process.
Yeah.
Like, what is someone going to tell me what to do?
That I
don't
Like,
know.
yeah.
And I was just so big on that.
Yeah.
And I do feel like men turn that away
I turned
immediately.
it away instantly. Every time she brought it up, I swatted it right back at her, because I'm like, look, I know my issues. I don't need someone else to tell me what those issues are. And that was always my answer. And if she's ever here today, or ever on the show with us, she's going to tell you the same thing.
We are going to have her on the show.
She'll
at
be
some
on the
point.
show. And we are now, like I said, we are on the edge of I'm on the edge of losing my wife altogether, because I didn't get help sooner, because of the emotional and all of the mental stress that I was under really, really ended up taking its toll on our relationship, and it beat her up too. And I just can't stress enough, therapy, now that I've been in it since, like I said, September-ish.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, you're good. Since September, I think it was I'm going to say this directly to the camera. This has been the best thing that I have ever done for myself. I sit down with this person once a week. She allows me completely judgment-free. There's nothing that she has ever said or done to me that ever made me feel that I wasn't being heard. And that, I got to tell you, is the most powerful thing, because like, as a man, like, you're thinking, who the fuck wants to hear what I have to say anyways?
Right.
That, if you are walking through your life, and if you're going day to day and you're just not, feel like you just can't get through, I'm telling you, therapy gave me a place to be able to just let it out. Right. And it's not just letting it out. What's important is that, because I feel that my therapist, and I'm sure many, many, many good therapists will do the same.
And just to kind of butt in on that,
Yeah.
It's okay to change therapists. Sometimes you just don't have
I got lucky.
that connection. I've went through that myself, to where, I had seen a couple different, and I'm just like, okay, she's just not really for me. And, I want people to know that's okay too, but don't give up, because I promise you're going to find somebody that you're going to like, just like you said.
Absolutely.
And you got lucky the first time.
I got lucky the first
So
time.
that's great.
On the other side of the spectrum, my wife is also in therapy. It's the same thing, where the same thing as what you were saying. Not me, but, she started, and she's like, this isn't working. It took her a few weeks. It took her some time to kind of realize, like, look, we're just spinning wheels here. She just switched, and she's, I think, on her third session with the new person. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh my gosh,
complete change.
Yeah, because one of the important things that I think is, yes, venting and just saying your problems is super powerful. It's super, it gives you back strength. It gives you back control a little bit. And the other side of it, though, what I think is really, really important is that, at least in my case, my therapist, she kind of guides things. She finds what she believes to be maybe a source of like a trigger or a pain or something, but she allows me to find it myself. But she guides me a little bit. Like she kind of nudges me, and it starts opening up different avenues that I didn't know existed. It's insane. And there's so much more. We can talk about this for days. Therapy has been the best thing that I've ever done for myself in my 40 years of life.
I just want to make that very clear. Me too. And I still am in therapy, and I want people to know too. You know, I see a psychiatrist too. You know, and sometimes it's okay, because sometimes we do need that extra boost to kind of regulate our chemical imbalances and just things. And I think people are so against different medications or ashamed. How many times I found people ashamed to talk about like medications and things like that. Yeah. I'm like, shit, girl, you better go take that Zoloft, or you better go take that anxiety medicine, or just whatever. And it's just like I said, just feeling as if that shame, or feeling like you're not normal. And it's like, no, if that's acceptable. What helps you, then do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm, like I said, the same way, big I just encourage, please go to therapy. And, I do, and I do know, like, for this episode, we are kind of, running down a time, and how important it was for mental health. Yeah. And I'm excited for the upcoming episodes, and I'm sure Kevin is too.
Oh yeah.
And I really just want to...
There's so much more to say, guys.
So really, much more. This was our pilot, so I kind of hope that everybody kind of like watched and just kind of, took away a lot of, what we talked about here today. This episode was more for the audience to kind of get to know me and Kevin, and just things that we'll be sharing about ourselves. And, we want to hear from you guys as well. We want to hear things that you would like to advocate and talk about, and that we can discuss at this table, and just come in, and whether it's questions you would like for us to print out and answer and talk about, or anything. And not like nothing's off the nothing's off the table. Yeah. But and I also, on a serious note, you guys, I do want to let you know that if Facebook, and you are my friends on Facebook, and you are a few of those men that are struggling on my timeline, and you really do feel like nobody is listening to you, I promise you my inbox is open for that. I just want people to know, whether it's just maybe I can offer you a little bit of advice or some coping tools, or just from my educational background in that, because I am educated in that, and that is what I do, and that is what I do have a degree in. And I'm not saying I'm going to solve your problems in a 5-minute message, but I promise you I can definitely, need be, get you the resources and connect you. And I think that's so important, you guys. And please start speaking up more. And when you feel like that, please seek the help, and please, we will be posting a number at the end of the podcast for those who are maybe potentially thinking about suicide or harming themselves. So we would like to give that information and a website for you to contact as well. And I am so excited for about what's yet to come.
This is big. Yeah. So guys, we're going to be posting the actual full length. I'm sorry. There's going to be a lot of clips leading up to the next episodes. So going forward, obviously you're seeing this now for the first time, but going forward on the clips that we post, feel free to leave comments, write us privately if you want to. Obviously, there's zero judgment on any of this stuff. We're also going to be setting up like a private email, so that way, if there's any sort of, you don't want to write us privately. You don't want to write us publicly. You want to like make anonymous emails, things like that. We're going to open up the lines for everybody to reach out to us, to give us some stuff to discuss. If you want to be on the show, let us know.
We would love, we are definitely looking for a guest. And like I said, we want to cover a very broad range of topics. Today, mental health was very important with men for our mental health awareness month. And we really wanted to touch base with that.
Yeah.
But, we want to hear about your business ventures. We want to hear,
Yeah, we want
we want to hear,
stories.
we want success stories. We want to know, I'm so proud of a lot of people on my timeline now who have beat addiction. And I would really love for someone to come in and just guide us through their struggle and story. Another, I know we seen on a post was another, a very touchy subject, sexual abuse and things like that. And,
Does things that aren't
rape,
necessarily talked about.
things that just
enough.
aren't talked about, and the family secrets that are buried and things that have happened to individuals that have affected them during life, and so we are very open to. We want to hear from everybody, and we really hope that you liked and enjoyed our podcast today, and we're so happy to continue. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not broken. You are only becoming.